We're going to take a look at a very interesting example of how supervised machine learning has come to the rescue in the real world. This involves the transmission of disease by mosquitoes and being able to mitigate that. There was a project called Remosis. I don't recall exactly what this stands for. Remote mosquito sensing. You can search in a search engine on this and find it. For our purposes, we're going to take that and abbreviate it significantly. But what's going on here is that mosquitoes will transmit certain diseases like malaria, and being able to track where the mosquitoes go is important in being able to establish where they're traveling and where the malaria might go. Um, there are certain mosquitoes that do transmit the disease and others that do not. And so what they've done, let's for our purposes say we have a jurisdiction, or a country that's 10 square miles. And what we've done is we've put traps evenly across 100 traps across this 10 square mile area. And what we do is every week we go out and we open the trap and look to see if it's trapped any mosquito. So as we go out every week, maybe spend a whole day opening a trap and looking to see, do we have the dangerous mosquito or not? If we do, then we have to go out there and see if we can't find out how many of these there are and how do we kill them or prevent them from propagating out. If it's this, we do nothing. And so this is a very time-intensive problem. Now, one thing that the Ramosis project did was they said, well, what if we could find a way to determine the difference between these two mosquitoes electronically or by way of some sort of data? And that's exactly what they did. So again, we're going to step back and use our own version here. Let's just assume that we took 1,000 of these awful mosquitoes and put them into a room, and we had sensors in the room that would record their sound, their speed, and how many flaps per second that they generate. And we did the same thing here. We took 1,000 of these and put them in a separate room, and we have sensors to measure how many times their wings flap, how fast they fly, how loud they are. Turns out mosquitoes have an average between 300 and 600 flaps per second. They travel between 1 and 15 miles an hour, and how loud they are, I don't know. But the idea here is that when we have these mosquitoes in one room with the sensor, we're building a training set, and we will label these. Recall in our training set, instead of being cats and dogs, we're saying, okay, this mosquito has certain flaps per second, a certain speed that it flies, and maybe a certain loudness that it has. And this has similar features in it. And so what we can do then is we now have data that we can classify as bad mosquito and as good mosquito. And so by doing this, we can build a supervised training model, or what we call a classifier. And so what they're able to do then is, instead of using traps, they go out and replace the traps with a sensor, so that the sensor, when a mosquito flies by, it will say, all right, well, this looks like the pattern of data that I got in my training set when we did the sensor with 1,000 mosquitoes in the room. And so they're able to build this classifier. It was very nice because they were able to, the data they got was such that they were able to tell the difference. It's kind of like the eyebrow muscles with cats and dogs. It wasn't that good, but this the idea here, is that the data was good. And so now, instead of having to drive around and do this, they get this in real time. All of those 100 different locations, when something flies by, the sensor sends back the information to a central location. And they can say, aha, well, the bad mosquito just flew by the sensor, we better get out there. They don't have to go anywhere, it doesn't cost anything, and there's an immediate response. So you can see how this works. Now, what if there was far more overlap between the data here, and they had to go out there and they thought, well, the sensor thought it was this, but it was really this. So they go out there and they waste their time. Or they go out there, it was one of these, excuse me, it was this, they thought it was the benign mosquito and it was really this. So what happens is they do nothing and the mosquito proliferates. So you can see how the data is very important in the success of this project. What, however, also, if we couldn't beam this information back and get it real time, we had to actually travel out and pull the information down out of the sensor. Is that better than the trap? Maybe not. So all in, maybe it's a net loss, or maybe there's no net gain. So in that case, this whole idea of using machine learning wouldn't be better than the existing method. So that's really the point of this example, is that we can see, one, there was an initial problem and how we made it better. We went from good to better, and then we also were able to have the benefit of really good data. So that's really an example here. That's really the point of this whole uh, idea here. Well, that's basically it for supervised machine learning. Thanks for hanging in there. Before I leave, I just want to reiterate those lessons because I think they're so important. Many machine learning and artificial intelligence efforts tend to go off the rail or die because of misconceptions. That's why I really wanted to reemphasize this, that like with our mosquitoes, we know that health is a very important topic, and the faster that we can get to the safety of others, the better. That is to say, the better we can watch for mosquitoes that transmit disease, the better. We also saw that this is better than an existing method in our case, where we had to go and travel across a 10 square mile area to get 100 traps, that the sensor was a far better way of doing this. So it was certainly justified. And finally, that the data happened to be what we needed it to be. It could just as easily have been that the two mosquitoes were so alike in their flaps per second and their sound and what have you, that there would be no way of telling the difference. So the entire project would have fallen on its face. Um, so these are mistakes that people make, and I think that knowing this puts you way ahead of the average bear with regard to this topic. So thank you again. We're now going to move on to explainability, and which is also a fascinating topic. So we'll see you there, and thanks again for watching.